All right. Here's something that always made me pause. You've got two countries, same resources, same smart, motivated people, but fast forward a few decades, one is thriving and the other one, it's a hot mess. Now, the go to explanation? Well, one got lucky, right? Better leaders, better timing, better neighbors. But what if it's not about luck? What if the real answer is wired into the game's build? Like, who made the rules? And who do the rules actually help? And who's just stuck playing along, losing every single time? So, 2024's Nobel Prize in Economics went to three scholars who basically said that none of this is random. It's not magic. It's systems, institutions, and power. The invisible scaffolding and the rigged blueprint. Welcome to Under the Curve. I'm Kashika, and listen, I'm not here to be your econ professor. I'm just here to help you ask the stuff no one else is asking. We dig into the structures that shape opportunity, inequality, and who holds the real power. Let's get into it. Okay, so picture this. You and I sit down to play Monopoly, but before we can even touch the dice, someone hits you with, hey, so you can't buy property until turn 5. Oh, and every time you pass go, you owe me rent. Meanwhile, I start the game with two hotels on the Broadwalk and a permanent get out of jail free card. Like, I basically already won before you opened the box. I bet you would toss the board by round 3, and honestly, I wouldn't blame you. But here's the wild part, that's not just a game. That's literally how entire countries were set up, especially during the colonial rule. Some got systems with rights, opportunities, and even ways to check power. But others, they were stuck in systems that were meant to take. They were built to trap and they were built to keep certain people out. And when the flags came down, those systems didn't just vanish, they stuck. In the laws, in the institutions, in who gets a shot and who stays stuck. So, next time someone asks, why is one country thriving and the other one spinning its wheels? Maybe flip the question and ask what kind of rules were wired into their system from day one and who got to write them. Alright, let's stop talking about Monopoly and talk about the real game, the one we're all living in. So in 2024, the Nobel Prize in Economics went to Darren Acemoglu, James Robinson, and Simon Johnson. And their core argument is kind of devastating. They say the biggest factor shaping a country's wealth isn't geography, it's not even culture or their resources. It is rules, specifically the institutions that write and enforce those rules. Now, I know, institutions sounds like a grad school buzzword, but what they're really talking about is power. Who has it and who doesn't, and what systems keep it that way. Now, there are two types of institutions, inclusive institutions, and they are the kind that protect rights, encourage entrepreneurship, and limit abuse. They are the kind of institutions that lead to growth. Whereas the second kind, which is extractive institutions, they are the ones designed to concentrate power and block participation. They trap countries in cycles of poverty and control. And the clearest example I can think of, North and South Korea. Think about it. North and South Korea began with the same roots. They had the same culture, history, and even geography. But the systems they built couldn't have been more different, up to a point. After the Korean War, the North and South built two radically different systems. South Korea moved slowly and painfully towards institutions that allowed for innovation, trade, and upwards mobility. But North Korea, it locked itself into authoritarianism, isolation, and total control over its citizens. The result? Today, South Korea is a global tech hub, home to Samsung, K dramas, and some of the fastest internet on the planet. But North Korea? It's like the Black Mirror episode where the tech goes off the rails, only it's real and way scarier. It's not just that North Korea missed out on growth, it was actively held back. Surveillance replaced opportunity, and isolation became policy. And look, this isn't about one being smarter or more modern, it's about structure. Who about who the system was built to serve and who it leaves out. Ace Monglu and his colleagues argue that this isn't an isolated case. You can see it across continents. In Latin America, in Africa, in post colonial states from India to the Caribbean. The rules, often inherited, imposed, or manipulated, have long term consequences. And most people are still playing the game they didn't choose. If we want to understand why inequality persists, why some countries climb while others stall, we have to stop blaming people and start looking at the game board. Because it's not just unfair, it's engineered that way. So we've got this idea now that institutions matter, not just as background noise, but as the actual wiring underneath a country's economy. And if that still feels a little abstract, let's talk about a place where it hits hard: Venezuela. A country with more oil than it knows what to do with. It should be wealthy, right? Like Norway wealthy. But instead, years of authoritarian rule, crony deals, and weak institutions turned all of that oil into a curse. When the systems built to serve a small group at the top, when there are no real checks, no accountability, it doesn't matter how many resources you have. A broken system doesn't just slow things down, it squeezes everything. Opportunities dry up and the safety net tears, and the future, it starts to close in like a tightening fist. Or we can also take Nigeria as an example. Huge population, tons of talent, and tons of oil. But decades of weak governance and military coups and rent seeking hollowed out the trust in the system. And once the trust is gone, so is the stability for investment and innovation, and for the long term growth. And honestly, these are not far away problems. You can feel institutional decay closer to home when laws are unevenly enforced and when political power gets concentrated, when people lose faith that the system works for them. So, yeah, institutions sounds academic, but they're not. They shape your everyday reality, whether your vote counts or whether the system quietly works against you, or just a select few. They're the difference between a country that unlocks its potential and the one that keeps tripping over its own system. Now, let's be honest. We love to think that success is all about hustle, talent, and good ideas. And yeah, those things matter. But if the system you're in is rigged from the start, the grind hits a ceiling real fast. It's like trying to level up in a video game where the final boss keeps cheating. This is the part nobody likes to say out loud. But some countries stay stuck because they were meant to. Not by faith, not by bad luck, but by design. by institutions that were built to extract, exclude, and protect people already in charge. Now, that doesn't mean things can't change, but they don't just change on their own. Someone has to ask the hard questions, and someone has to challenge the way the game is being played. Now, before we pretend this theory explains everything, there are exceptions. Notice these cases, like Singapore, Dubai, even China, aren't the examples Ace Monglu or Robinson focus on in their book, Why Nations Fail. But they do explore why institutions should matter. Critics highlight that these countries have shown growth that can happen sometimes with different systems. Let's take Dubai. Not exactly a model for inclusive democracy. Political power is centralized. Migrant work have very few rights, and there is no real electoral system. But it is thriving economically. Modern infrastructure, booming tourism, massive foreign investment. How? Well, because it built functional institutions around trade, real estate, and business, even if it left political inclusivity off the table. Or look at Singapore, super centralized, limited press, and yet high growth, low corruption, and world class public services. Institutions there aren't inclusive in the modern democratic sense, but they are efficient, merit based, and trusted. So, yeah, it's not always a clean formula. Sometimes economic success is built on a trade off, freedom for order and representation for rapid growth. That doesn't break the theory, but it forces us to ask sharper questions. So, here's mine for you. If institutions are man made, who's rewriting them around? And who's making sure they don't? You don't have to have the answers. I definitely don't. But sitting with better questions, that's how we stop mistaking broken systems for normal ones. This is Under the Curve. We don't just skim headlines, we ask what's underneath and who's keeping it there. Thank you for being here, and if you're still listening, then yeah, you're one of the curious ones. And that's exactly who this podcast is for. Every week on Under the Curve, we unpack the systems that shape our world, the one we're told are just how things are. Spoiler, they're not. If you like this episode, hit a follow on Spotify or wherever you're listening. Rate it, share it, and send it to the group chat with zero context. Do your thing. I'm Kashika, and this was Under the Curve. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, stay curious.